This is the 17th season of Bass Talk Live with your hosts, Mark Jeffries and Matt Pangrat. BTL is brought to you by rant, Bass Cat Boats, APCO, Duck and Fishing, Strike King Lures, Sunline, Big Bite Baits, Spro, X-Zone Lures, Yamagatsu, The Bass Tank, and Denali Rods. BTL coming at you. Good Tuesday morning, everybody. Welcome once again to another edition of BTL, Bass Talk Live, where we're going to talk bass fishing and anything else that Ken and I want to talk about. Yes, he is back, our guest host today and tomorrow, Mr. Ken Duke. Ken, how you doing, man?
Doing great, Mark. Always a pleasure to be on Bass Talk Live. Always a pleasure to visit with my friend Mark Jeffries. Wearing my big Toho Marina hat here, supporting my buddies Cody and Mark. Just a good day to be in the bass world.
All right. We have a lot to talk about. We have a special guest, too, and I'm hoping I've been texting with him all morning long. Folks, we're going to have Jacob Wheeler on. Hopefully, keep your fingers crossed. But Jacob and I believe Andy Morgan were out turkey hunting this morning. So he has been texting me saying, we've got one, we're on another one, should be there. And then I just got a text from him that said, on the way to the truck. So hopefully he's got a good signal wherever they are turkey hunting, and we will have Jacob Wheeler on here in a few minutes.
I think if MLF and the rest of the bass fishing competitive world can get Jacob Wheeler into another hobby, that's good for them and bad for Jacob. We know what a hit that put on Roland Martin decades ago when he really got serious about his turkey hunting. Andy Morgan is a wildly serious hunter, Mark, as you know.
Yeah.
And many a time I've been trying to get hold of Andy during the off season for an article, get a couple of quotes for an article that I'm working on. And man, he's in the deer stand. And I'll say, man, call me when you get out of the deer stand. Call me when you get done field dressing the deer. Call me whenever you can. It is really hard to reach that guy during hunting season. If the rest of the MLF folks can convince Wheeler to get serious about hunting, that'd be a very smart move.
All right, very nice. We have several things to talk about first, and I'm going to put you on the spot a little bit, Ken, because if you don't know the answer, I know you will find out the answer because you are the bass historian, and we will get to that in a minute. But on the Elite Series this past weekend, they got delayed a day. They had the final yesterday, and Wes Logan gets it done on one of the bodies of water that he grew up on as a kid, and the HFA continues.
Yeah, home field advantage has become a real thing.
Yeah,
it hasn't always been a real thing. It tends to be, and we talked a little bit about this once before, Mark, but there are certain bodies of water that seem to carry a significant home field advantage, kind of like Mile High Stadium in the NFL, the Dean Dome in college basketball. Yeah, there are certain places, and they don't hit Neely Henry often, but Neely Henry may be one of those kind of places. A couple of the ones I think about are that always come to mind for me when I think about home field advantage are Lanier in Georgia, where Tom Mann Jr. and Mickey Bruce dominated every circuit's tournaments for decades. The California Delta in especially in open type events where Robert Lee won 4 in a row, a local guy out there. There's some places where that home field advantage really plays, and there's some places where it doesn't. And I think the places where it doesn't play are the places where the circuits go quite often. Yeah. Toledo Bend, Rayburn, Kentucky Lake, Gunnersville, the Kissimmee Chain, St. John's, Okeechobee, where they've gone there 30, 40 times through the years. Mm-hmm. And so everybody's kind of familiar with those places. Those places are not unusual, offbeat, or something they're not familiar with. So the home field advantage does not play nearly as strong there. And we talk about a home. We used to talk about a home field jinx. We talked about it especially for the Bassmaster Classic until Boyd Duckett won in 2007 in his home state of Alabama. But I think that's been a little bit overrated, because even though it was unprecedented for a local to win the Classic, the locals often did quite well. They just came up a little bit short. When the Classic was on the James River in Virginia 3 years in a row, Woo Daves was expected to win. Well, he never won there. He finally won in Chicago, but he never won on the James River, which is basically home water for him. But he came close. He had high finishes. So for a long time, the locals didn't get it done, but they usually didn't totally fall apart.
Yeah, I think so many dynamics of the game have changed to where the HFA is a big-time factor now. All right, I want to say this. I watched a ton of the coverage this past weekend. Dude, I got to give it up to the camera guys, because what they went through to cover these guys and what these guys were throwing, I don't think people realize how difficult their jobs are when these guys are throwing a lot of frogs and buzz baits to where they have to zoom in and they got to follow this bait. And I'll say this, Ken, you want to get glued to a computer screen or a television, just watch the buzz bait that Gerald Swindle is throwing, because any moment you think that buzzbait is just getting ready to explode as it's going through that cover. I was absolutely glued in on what those guys were doing, not just because I'm a topwater nut, but going through that water willow or whatever it was, to see the strike and reaction. All right, when that explosion took place, either on the frog or the buzzbait, dude, that was worth it. Even if nothing even destroyed that buzzbait, the anticipation was still there, and I was glued.
Well, that's why we're bass fishermen, man. They always, I think they usually credit Einstein as saying that the definition of an insanity is doing the same thing over and over and expecting a different result. Well, isn't that what every bass fisherman does? I mean, we sling that buzz bait by a stump, and we wind it by, and we tense up as it gets near that stump. And maybe we've been throwing it maybe for 3 hours and never had a bite, but we still tense up every time it passes that stump.
It was so cool.
Insanity, but it's also bass fishing. And Swindle, my gosh, if there is a better buzzbait fisherman on a major tour, I'm not sure I know who it is. He's a real technician with a buzzbait.
Yeah, it was really, really entertaining to watch, and hopefully the fans got enjoyment out of that. What Wes Logan was able to accomplish was amazing. Fantastic job, but the experience and the memories and just the knowledge that he had on that body of water definitely gave him an edge with everything that was taking place from the flooding standpoint.
Yeah, that lake had gone through a lot. Of course, they had to cancel the first day, they had to postpone Thursday's first day of competition because of weather and water conditions. And I think that's another time, we talk about that home field advantage, Mark. I think that whenever you're dealing with unusual circumstances, whether they be water conditions or weather or something like that, that does play into the hands of the locals who have seen that body of water under a wider variety of conditions and have a better notion of how they might adapt. Yeah. So that, I think that helped play into Logan's hands. And he had really strong days on 3 and 4, and that was enough to put him over the top.
Yeah, a lot of people were pulling for him too, and there's not too many people in this game that have the following like the G-Man. So it's going to happen. Yeah. One of these days he's going to get a blue trophy. It's just a matter of time. But, man, so close so many times. All right, I want to ask you this, Ken. Do you have statistical data? Is there anything out there that you have that has a consecutive days with a limit? In other words, do you know what angler has the record for most consecutive days for a limit on the Bassmaster Elite Series? Or even back in the top 100 or the BP 150s or whatever they were called?
Mark, how can you ask me that question? How can you, how in good conscience as a friend could you even ask that question? I mean,
I'm curious. I'm curious.
Obviously, I have that information, and I'm hurt that you even asked. Well, yeah, let's talk about that because that's a great. I love the question, and for a long time, the guy who had that record was, of course, Kevin Van Dam, who limited every day for 57 consecutive days, competition days.
Right.
And I started looking that up many years ago. His streak was in 2008, 2009, by the way. But I started looking that up many years ago. It was the anniversary of Joe DiMaggio's hitting streak ending.
Uh-huh.
And DiMaggio had a hitting streak in 1941 of 56 straight games. And I thought, well, what's the equivalent of a major league hitter's hitting streak, consecutive game hitting streak? And I thought, well, it must be who has caught the most consecutive limits, because a limit is like getting a hit in a game, you know?
Yeah.
Well, who's got that record? And so I started digging, and it took a long time to go through my databases and spreadsheets and stuff like that. But I determined that Van Dam was one better than DiMaggio. He did it 57 consecutive times, which I thought was amazing.
He's calling you right now.
No, he's not calling me now. I silenced my phone, but I'm on a Mac, and whenever the phone rings, the computer, I don't know what I'm doing.
All right, keep going.
So anyways, Van Dam had the record for 57 consecutive competition days in 2008, 2009. He caught a limit, and I thought, wow, that's a big number. Other guys had come close. Bobby Lane had 55. Jason Christie did 51. But then last year, believe it or not, Van Dam's record was broken. And not a lot of people know this. And when I say not a lot of people know this, I think I'm the only one who knew it at the time, because I'm the only one who kept track of that stuff.
That's why I asked you.
Exactly. Well, anyway, I found out that an angler broke the record last year. Would you care to guess? And the Elite Series record for consecutive limits. Care to guess?
No, I have no idea.
It's a tough one. The new record is 65, 8 better than Van Dam, and the record belongs to Stetson Blaylock.
Wow.
And I did let Stetson know, and so he's aware.
What was the number? 65?
65 consecutive limits.
That's unbelievable, man.
That is unbelievable. That's remarkable.
Yeah.
And that's very impressive. So, Mr. Blaylock, if you're watching, and don't you think you should be, applause to you, sir. That's a big deal.
All right, now that's a huge positive stat. Let's go the negative route, because we got into a discussion about this the other day. I believe there were only 2 anglers. I could be wrong, but that's why I got the man on the show. All right. How many people have went through an entire Elite Series season? And it can't happen anymore because they all get paid. But who has went through an entire Elite Series season without getting one check?
Oh, wow. Well, it's been a few guys, but I don't keep really close records on that, Mark. I can tell you the first guy to do it was Jimmy Houston.
That's the one I did get.
Yeah, he did it in 2006. But since then, some other guys have done it. I could throw out a couple of names that I'm pretty positive they didn't get a check in any one year, but I hate to single them out since I can't give you a more authoritative list. I stopped keeping track on money because the money has varied in so many ways about how many anglers get paid and so forth that I think it's lost relevance except to the angler himself and his wife and family.
Yeah.
But to me, that kind of stuff tends not to have a lot of value. I can tell you, and this is a weird one because I'm looking it up now on my list. I can tell you a guy who went the most consecutive days without catching any limits, but I don't know if we want to single him out either.
Who was it? I want to know.
It was Scott Ashmore.
Yeah, Scott, he went like 20. He holds the record for most consecutive events without a check.
Yeah, he did not have the greatest run.
Yeah.
But he got to fish the Elite Series, and and good for him.
He's still grinding away. I know he's fishing some stuff, but dude, do the math on that. How much of a blow up on your savings does that take into consideration to go 20 plus events without a check?
Well, it depends on how good your sponsorships are. I mean,
yeah, but you know what? I say this all. Yeah, but Ken, I say this all the time. You still got to pay the mortgage payment, the insurance payment. Still got to pay taxes, right? Still got to pay the gas bill. You still got all these fixed costs and variable costs that you got to cover. Sponsorship dollars only go so much, man, and I think that gets lost in a lot of.
Especially if you're not successful, sponsorship dollars only go so far. But that's the nature of professional bass fishing for a lot of anglers. Is they mortgage life and limb to get out there. Some of them, and it's sometimes frightening about the attitude that a lot of guys have, not just at the top level, but at every level of competitive bass fishing. You run into guys who think, well, I don't have to have the money in the bank to pay that third installment of my entry fees because I'm gonna win some money. And the other place you see this kind of stuff is at boat shows. I learned this from a lot of different boat dealers through the years. There's usually a guy there with his wife trying to convince his wife that they need a $50,000 or $60,000 or $80,000 boat. Yeah. And he's saying, well, hon, that monthly payment's not that bad, and I'll guide a couple of trips each month, and that'll cover it. And then I'll win some money in tournaments, and that'll cover it. And yep, that's a tough way to go.
Well, I have good news because I can see him in the queue in his turkey hunting gear.
Is he in full camo?
He is, Mr. Jacob Wheeler. We're going to take a break, and we haven't tested the signal, so this is a first for BTL when we went to this new software. So hopefully, fingers crossed, we'll be able to go to him after the break.
Fantastic.
It looks good. It looks like it's going to work. Hopefully, we got audio and video. If not, then we'll go the old-fashioned route and give him a call on the phone.
Is he going to be the first BTL guest in full camo?
No, I think we had Andy Morgan on.
Well, if you have Andy Morgan, he's in full camo.
Yeah.
So
and Luke Clausen. Luke Clausen, too. That was when Luke was staying with him for a little while or something. We had them both on, and they were both in. They were all camoed out. All right, we're going to take a break. More to talk about. But next up, the man that got it done at Travis. And he's going to build a new room on his house, dude, for all the hardware this guy's got. I mean, good grief. He's running out of space, Ken. He really is. All right, we're going to take a break here on a Tuesday. Come back with Jacob Wheeler. Everybody stay tuned.
The ultimate fishing system starts with Lowrance HDS Live. The best fish finding tools, from chirp sonar and fish reveal to active imaging and new active target live sonar, and complete touchscreen control from your trolling motor to your big motor. For a limited time, building the ultimate fishing system will be easier on your wallet. Upgrade to HDS Live with a Ghost trolling motor, active target sonar, or live site sonar, and save up to $800.
Basscat's legendary 20-foot platform has been paired with angler-approved accessories for 2021. Puma FTD features the proven hull used by many of the top names in bass fishing today, backed by a transferable lifetime warranty. The Puma FTD boasts a full team deck concept which enhances efficiency for you and your tournament partners. Turnkey tournament-winning performance. The Puma FTD SP from Basscat.
Let's face it, fishing electronics are no longer an afterthought. They've become a necessity. And at the Bass Tank, our experts match you with the right electronics, provide professional installation, and educate you to help maximize your catching results while providing support along the way. Because let's be honest, it's about catching, not just fishing. And when you're ready for better results, join the Bass Tank team. Visit us today on Facebook or go to thebasstank.com.
You've been waiting all week for this, and Sunline wants to make sure you're ready for it with bulk spools of all your favorite fishing lines.
That's so fun.
Bulk up with Sunline.
Utilizing my experience, utilizing my time on the water, evolving as an angler, and that evolution should never stop. You have to do it every day. From when you wake up in the morning, you got to be thinking about changing, continually changing every minute, every cast. That's really the premise of fishing the moment.
Everyone, Brandon Polnick here. People always be asking me what I got tied on. I'm like, X-Zone lures. And they're like, Brandon, why you got X-Zone lures tied on? And I'm like, let me show you why.
The bite. Get out of there. Get out of there. Oh, yeah. Oh, it's freaking digging. Get in here. Oh, God. Giant. Oh, my gosh. Oh, my gosh.
I think you get the point.
All right, we are back on a Tuesday with our special guest host, Mr. Ken Duke. And by the way, I did speak to Matt. That's why he's not in studio. He is fishing the Open on the James River and feeling very positive, having a good practice. So we'll see what happens, Ken.
Yeah, rooting for Matt, of course. I mean, what a great guy and really a fantastic angler. So
yeah,
it's good to see him have a big tournament at the James River.
All right, we'll see what happens. Hopefully tomorrow we'll be able to talk to him a little bit. The place that he was in this morning, horrible cell signal, so we weren't able to check in with him. But yes, he is having an outstanding practice. We'll see what happens when the lights come on Thursday. All right, it is time to bring in our special guest. Hopefully this is going to work. Let's bring him in now. Jacob, how you doing, man?
There he is.
What about it, guys? What about it?
All right. First question, man. How was the morning in the woods?
So I'm out here hunting with Andy Morgan, which is, in my opinion, one of the best outdoorsmen I've ever met in my entire life. So we actually had 3 gobblers that were gobbling crazy this morning within a couple hundred yards. We got us one. I got one this morning. Andy helped me call one in, completely all Andy, and he's out looking for a second one right now. So I just slid the truck to say hey to y'all.
Well, Jacob, is hunting a new hobby for you, or have you been into it for a while?
I've actually been deer hunting quite often for the last probably 5-6 years. Actually, Matt Airy, a good buddy of mine, fish the elites now, and he got me into bow hunting for whitetail. And then, I moved right here real close to Andy Morgan last year, a couple of years, and after I'm like, all right, let's do this thing. And so every time we get a chance now, it's sort of a pretty cool opportunity to be able to get in the woods with Andy. Anytime he has an opportunity, I'm like, let's go.
Now you are aware that everybody in MLF is thrilled that you're turkey hunting and getting into this hunting for more, right?
Yeah,
this is a dream come true.
I get a little combination of both. I gotta do it all. It's sort of you don't get very many opportunities, so that's hilarious. Though I definitely enjoy a little time off as well.
All right. Well, we greatly appreciate you taking time out and coming on the show when you're in the woods. I was a little nervous there whether or not the signal is going to come in, but everything seems to be okay so far. All right, I want to dive in to your latest victory a little bit. And Jacob, one of the things that I noticed, dude, you were power fishing for the most part on a clear body of water. And when you went through the rundown on your setup and what you were using, you kept emphasizing the fact that you use 20-pound test line for the vast majority of the week. You got to dive into that. Why?
Yeah, I mean, the biggest thing was, I was a little bit more in the stained water of the lake, but the craziest thing, that Lake Travis in general, the last time I was there was during Bass Fest back in the day when I got second to Drew Benton, and that was a good week, but the zebra mussels are horrible. I don't even know if they're quagga mussels or zebra mussels. that place is the worst for line management I've ever seen throughout the country. And so, bumping up, I was throwing 15 and 17 to get that little bit more depth out of that vibrating jig throughout the week, and realized that was just not enough. 20, even possibly 25 would have been better. It just, like, when you're skipping around those boat docks, those zebra mussels were horrible. And what would happen is you would skip way 20, 30 feet up underneath there, and you would get a nick in your line 10, 20 feet up. And typically you're always checking where you're hitting rocks or something like that on a crankbait, or where you're flipping into wood, where you're, the first 3 feet of your line. Well, what would happen is you'd set the hook on one, and it would break way high in the water, way high on your line, because you skipped right over there over something and just take one of the zebra mussels the wrong way. And so that's why is the biggest reason. But the other reason was I was catching some pretty big ones for that body of water. First day we had 16 for 53.11, so right at about a 330 average for each fish. So it was a good morning, good day that day.
So was there any thought at all to try and do some things in the clearer water, or based upon the history and based upon what you felt was going to be the right thing to do during practice, to just stay in the a little bit more stained water and power fish? And the reason I ask that is because I want the fans to know that a lot of times the perceived interpretation of what's going to happen may not be where you're going to have the most success. Is that a correct statement, Jacob?
100%. So for me, it really came down to two things in this event. Lake Travis is really well known for its numbers of bass. But the last time we were there, it was not easy to catch quality fish. There's a lot of fish, a lot of 1 pounders, pound and a quarters. In this last week, we went to a 1.8 pound minimum because there was not a ton of 2 pound fish. The percentage of 2 pound fish were really low on Lake Travis. So the league made a variable weight minimum 1.8, and it wasn't easy to catch 1.8. It was not that easy. You catch a 14.5 inch fish that would weigh 1.5, 1.6. That was not unscorable. And so really for me, it came to the point of you either stay down the lake and fish for number of bites and have to go through 50, 60, 70, possibly even 100 bass to be in the top, be in a good position to catch enough scorables, or you go up the lake where the water's a little more stained, power fish for quality. So it was more quality versus quantity. Now the lower end had a ton of really big ones too, 7, 8, 9, 10 pounders, not a ton, but there was that one, every once in a while you got that bite that was just absolutely giant too. So there was sort of a little combination of it all, but I felt like the quality day in and day out, 2, 3, 4 pound bites were up the river in that stained water, and that's why I stuck with what I was doing.
All right, Ken.
Jacob, I want to change gears for just a second. Mark and I had a show, an episode of BTL last year sometime, and we talked about, excuse me, because you were just about to turn 30 at that time. Excuse me. And we talked about who had the better career to age 30. Was it you or Kevin Van Dam? And I think both Mark and I agreed that maybe it's you. Maybe to age 30, it's you. The difference between you and Van Dam to that point, both of you guys have won quite a few tournaments. You've won some major events, and he didn't win a classic until he was, I think, 33, 34 years old. But you hadn't picked up any AOYs. So it really came down to the battle of AOY versus the major thing. What's it like to be compared to the consensus GOAT of the sport?
Well, I mean, I'm not, it feels, I mean, obviously you just, for me, I try to be the best I can be every event. Obviously Kevin, I mean, I got a lot of work to do before I can even think about all that. But, obviously it's flattering because, I look up to a lot of the guys out there, and Kevin, in my opinion, obviously I look at Rick Clunn, I look at Kevin is the GOATs of their time. And I think the biggest thing is you look at basketball, you look at football, you look at baseball, and you really can only try to strive to be the best of your era. I feel like you look at a Michael Jordan and you have the LeBron James argument all the time. And I mean, you look at like some of the great anglers like Jordan Lee and Atafo that are coming up and crushing it and absolutely doing an unbelievable job. I think the thing is you just, because things change so much, things with electronics, with patterns. I look at right now, things have just changed, from Rick Clunn was the man to Kevin jumping in to you looking at Atafo and Jordan Lee. And those guys, I mean, it's just constantly changing and the sport's constantly evolving. And that's what I love most about it. I just love competing. So really at the end of the day, for me, I'm not worried about, hey, if I'm ever in that category of one of the best or whatever. I just enjoy bass fishing, and I go out there and I compete every day. And I just love that competition level, and it drives me to become better.
Jacob, I'm sorry. Go ahead, Ken.
No, that's all right, Mark. Go ahead. I'll follow up in a minute.
Okay. I'm really curious post-tournament win. How do you approach that? And what I mean by that, Jacob, do you reflect back or do you just move on to the next one? Do you reflect back and go, I really did this well. I need to continue that trend. And even when you win, do you learn from winning? All right. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I definitely. I would say you learn more from your failures. You learn more from your losses because you tend not to critique yourself as much when you won. But I definitely go back and think, man, I probably could have done this a little bit better. There's always room for improvement. My whole thing is I don't ever want to get complacent and not work. My whole thing is I don't ever want to be outworked. I want to work as hard as I possibly can. And as long as I'm giving 120% on that water and giving my prep time and all those things, then whatever I do is whatever I do. And so for me, I tend to take a little bit of time to enjoy a win. But at the same point in time, I just look at the next one. I'm sitting there like I was driving back home and I had Brody, my camera guy, jump and he was driving. And I'm just sitting there thinking about Harris Chain. Okay, what do I got next? What do I got next? You just go to the next one. And you have to be like that. I think you have to take a little bit of time to enjoy it because obviously you just don't know when your last one's going to be. There's trends and you have great runs and stuff like that. But I try to just live ahead. Like, hey, that's in the past. Let's keep on moving.
All right, one more question, then I'll send it to you, Ken. I'm curious that last few minutes of your victory at Travis, it was a little nervous, a little nail biting going on there because you had guys that were rallying, especially that last 10 minutes. Kind of describe what you were going through, because what I saw was you were sticking with what really gave you success and you weren't deviating from that at all, but you weren't catching anything. What was your thought process during that whole scenario?
Yeah, so obviously it was very stressful. That score tracker dinging off and you're like, gosh, I got to catch one. And my thing was, my thought process during that whole deal, I could pick up a finesse tactic or, a drop shot, a nail weight, a wacky worm, things like that. But my problem was that I found out in practice and throughout the event is I could not generate. If I generated 10 bites on that, I would only have, one scoreable. So 10% of my bites would only be a scoreable fish. And where throwing that vibrating jig, it was almost 75% of the time, 80% of the time. So I was truly targeting, those better average quality bass. And so for me, I knew that third period was tough. I had some fish that I broke one off that day. I ended up having some fish blow up and knock my top water out of the water. Had the bites. It's just, I knew that third period was my nemesis and I just had to somehow get by. That second period first period was definitely my better period. Second period, I could still catch a few. And that third period was making a few adjustments. And as you get up, I was up about 8 pounds going into about 45 minutes left. At that point in time, I'm like, I know I need one more bite, but I also knew, hey, don't get comfortable because at the end of the day, so at that point in time, when you're up by 8 pounds, you don't want to make too many adjustments because obviously what you're doing is still working. But it was beyond stressful in that last bit. I figured I could go back down through a stretch that I had a couple bites on a vibrating jig. And I had 3 bites down through. I actually lost a really big one that morning on that stretch. Just pulled off, and I never got another bite towards that last bit. But I was casted. If you watch, it was not for lack of trying.
No, you're right, man. You're right. All right, Ken.
All right, you mentioned the score tracker going ding, Jacob, and that's become one of your trademarks. And a lot of people love it. And there's some folks who don't like it. And I'm waiting for you to put it on your cap, kind of like Matthew Robertson's on him.
Yeah.
Just ding. But,
that's right.
You got to compete against Robertson in the fashion world.
That's right.
Here's a weird question. You're still a very young guy. You're you're at the peak of your powers right now, and you should be really strong for another 15 years, physically there and everything. What about, 5, 6, 8 years ago, you had fewer distractions. You didn't have a family. You didn't have as many sponsor obligations. You didn't have as many fans. What about being Jacob Wheeler and fishing competitively now is tougher than it was 7, 8 years ago, if anything?
I definitely think time management is everything now. Obviously, that is a huge deal. Having a family, having a second one on the way, having more sponsor obligations, constantly traveling, having a full YouTube channel that we're posting 3 times a week. I mean, that's stuff hasn't been on a lot of people's plate. So it's not only am I trying to manage what I do on the water and also manage cameras and make sure we have footage, but then also try to film on the off time, try to make sure all that's going on, make sure sponsors are happy, partners are good. And then obviously the most important thing is my wife and my little one. So that's a big thing, but I have a great team behind me. I couldn't do it without my wife, Alicia. She's absolutely phenomenal. She holds it down and takes care of things. That if I need some help, I can do it. And then I also, it's just really having a good, strong team. I definitely think it's tougher, all of the above, than it was, because all I was worried about was fishing, catching bass. Of course, working with partners as well. But now it's becoming a deal where you have to. I mean, there's just a lot to it, and but I also enjoy that. I feel like as you grow as an angler as well, early on you have to learn to make adjustments. You have to learn a fishery or learn types of fisheries. For instance, like highland reservoirs, natural lakes, Tennessee River impoundments, TBA stuff. And once you sort of understand the type of fishery, you can sort of make that work all over the country for those certain types of fisheries. So I think there's an advantage as well as knowledge and being able to dissect water at a faster rate than I was 6 or 7 years ago. So there's things that I would say are tougher, for sure, because you have more things on the plate, but I also think there's a lot of stuff that's a lot easier than it was.
Well, I just wanted to make you aware that all the other Major League Fishing anglers are paying for Andy Morgan to take you hunting and keep you occupied. And the next step is they're going to try to get you racing cars with Bradley Roy, or Bradley Waugh, as Mark calls him.
Yeah.
And they're trying to get you into hang gliding with David Dudley. So your plate is going to be even more full.
I don't know if we go out on a limb on that far. I don't know. I mean, I'm going to probably keep it to a couple of hobbies and limit it that way, because I know I don't have a ton of time.
I'm just telling you it's coming. That's all. Beware.
Wow.
That's awesome.
Hey, several questions about the difference between using the bladed jig compared to a regular swim jig around boat docks. Why that selection, Jacob?
So the biggest thing behind that was that I could pitch that white jig when I'm like sure a shad spawn or they were up there eating shad. I could pitch that white jig into really tough to reach areas. So I had a weed guard on there, so I could pitch over cables and places where that vibrating jig would get hung up because it wants to trend to go down, where I could keep that white jig up in the water column. A couple fish that I would even pitch over the top of a walkway, and they'd be up high and they'd bite it. So it really just depends. Also, a lot of times watercolor. Sometimes that white jig is better when the watercolors the jig itself with not a blade, not a lot of vibration, a little bit cleaner water. I tend to go for something a little bit more subtle because there's not a lot of vibration. So I switch it back and forth. It really just depends, but it really was able where I could go down through a stretch, sort of see like, okay, hey, I pitch down through there. I skip back up underneath a dang pontoon, and there's a little, there's a boat slip and a boat lift. I could pitch back in those boat lifts and get through there a little bit easier with that white jig or the swim jig.
All right, Ken, anything else for Jacob?
Yeah, Jacob, I was privileged to be able to spend a day in the boat with you. I think we were on Toledo Bend or something some years ago. And one of the things, I was very impressed with you just in our conversation, but one of the things that blew me away is you are absolutely one of the finest casters I've ever seen. And I've seen a lot of top guys, but man, you were putting a popper with 2 treble hooks on it in places that I could not have carried it by hand. And I know that's a lot about time on the water, but is there any advice you can give the rest of us for improving your casting? Is it all about practice, time on the water? Are there any shortcuts?
I've always been worried about. I've always been worried about trying to make sure that I can get better at casting. And the thing is, like, I worked on that since I was really young with the program of casting kids when I was 12, 13 years old. I lived in Indiana, and it was, hey, we had snow on the ground, frozen lakes. I'd be pitching the cup constantly. So I've always been caught up with that. Now I'm not an Andy Morgan or some of those Andy Montgomerys. I try to work on my trade. And the thing is like I've noticed as I fish offshore more, I've become less and not nearly as good because it's all reps. It's like you might be a great caster this year, and then 3 years down the road, all you do is fish offshore, casting out there in the middle of grass flats or whatever, and you can't cast nearly as well. So it's all about repetition. It's all about it's like anything like swinging a club. It's all about more you do it, the better you become. But you still have to keep up with it. I think the big thing is also starting with a shorter rod if you're trying to skip. I suggest going to a 7-footer or even a 6'10" if you're first starting out. I throw a 7.3 medium heavy and a heavy action rod on my casting rods. But I throw those because now I've graduated where I can get the leverage that I need and I can still make the accuracy with the 7.3. So that's sort of the reasoning behind it. I think also the other thing is taking your time and adjusting your reels, whatever reel you have, making sure you take your time and adjust your reels, putting a little bit more brakes on it if you're first trying to start out. But when you get comfortable, you can back off those brakes, you can back off that tension knob, and that's going to let you get back up underneath those places a lot more. If you have a lot of brakes on, you're not going to get that far up underneath that boat dock. You're not going to hit the back of the dang dock like Andy Montgomery. But if you can back it off, eventually you work on it. You say you first get up where you get comfortable and you're making that cast and you're skipping 3 foot up underneath there, then 6 feet, then 10 feet, and you back it off more and more. You become more fluid, and ultimately that just becomes, you put it in places where not every other angler is actually fishing.
Great advice. And I learned a lot about skipping from Andy Montgomery. I learned from one of the masters there, but where you can put a bait, man, is so impressive. And Mark, getting it back to you here, Jacob mentioned he was in the Casting Kids program back when he was 12 and 13. It was about that same age that he won his Wood Cup. So got that going for him.
There you have it. Dude, I don't think I've ever asked you this question. I want to know, what do you feel is your weakness and what you really need to improve on? Dude, I mean, you're winning everything. You're one of the superstars in the game. What is Jacob Wheeler's weakness?
I mean, I try to work on
turkey hunting.
Turkey hunting, that's right. Yeah. These turkeys out here. Andy just texted me. He said, "Man, I got one goblin. How long you got?" I got to get this on film. He's laughing. No, I mean, it's. I would just say, oh man, I don't know about a technique that I would say. I have a lot to learn. There's so much, there's so much that I have to figure out. But I've been fortunate to be good at a handful of things. I would say grass fishing is probably my number one that I have to get better at. Fishing grass. I hate to just cast around in grass flats and fish like just out in the middle of everything. Like I have to be like specific, and it has to be like an isolated patch of grass or a little corner or something. But a lot of times you have to find fish by actually fishing. And I think that's the one thing that I have to work on. That's another thing, even offshore, finding fish in that shallower water, 4 to 8 foot flats. A lot of times those fish are the fish you can't grab, and you actually have to fish for to find. And I think that's probably the one thing that I say that I have to get better at. There's a lot more than that, but there's.
I'm sorry to interrupt you. It's interesting that you're out there with Andy Morgan, a guy who is renowned for throwing maybe 5 baits. He's really streamlined his approach and he's a master at a handful of things, and you're very much a generalist. If you can't isolate a technique where you feel like you need a lot of particular work, is there a body of water type, deep highland reservoirs, shallow, swampy, natural places like in Florida? Is there a type of water where you feel like you need to really ramp up your game?
Yeah, I would say natural lakes, like I would say, are and I've started to understand a little bit of the natural lakes. And then also swampy areas like cypress tree lakes. Those are lakes that are very, when you have a lot of cover in the water and it becomes very, it comes where it's really hard to dissect. It almost becomes overwhelming. So I think those are the places, like I think cypress tree lakes are very hard to dissect for me. Like when you have hundreds and thousands of trees all over the place, how do you decide this tree over that tree? Obviously, you think isolated, you think points, you think pockets, but there's a lot to that. So I think that's something, those types of lakes that I look at where there's just abundance of cover, that's when I feel like that is probably one of the toughest things. When you only have a handful of things in the water and you only have 7 docks and 6 brush piles and a couple of rock banks, it makes it pretty easy to make adjustments and run around and fish what's in front of you. But when you have a lot of cover, I think that's when it becomes the most. So I would say the swampy cypress tree lakes are probably, I got to work on that.
All right, man. Dude, I got to ask, where is the red trophy at? The latest one.
It's at the house right now. It's not here out in the woods. That's for sure. I
knew that.
We're actually building a house right now, so we're in the middle of all that, and so I don't know when exactly it'll be done, but we'll. I'm sure it'll be pretty awesome to have that all set up and be able to actually put that one up on the mantle.
All right, very cool, man. Thanks again for taking time out, and we'll definitely have you on here in the future. And go kill a bird, man.
All right, Andy's yelling at me. He's like, "Son, we gotta go. We gotta go."
I know. All right, all right, man. Thanks, Jacob.
Take care, Jacob.
All right, there you have it. He was anxious to get back to the woods.
That's what every other MLF angler is so thrilled to see. I think they're all hoping he got a bird today, but they don't want him to fill his limit yet. You don't want that.
Yeah.
Takes him out of the woods, but
yeah. All right, we're gonna take a break, come back, and wrap up Tuesday here on BTL. Everybody, stay tuned. We'll be right back.
Big companies get bigger and bigger and talk about their fancy labs where they study fish behavior, but then they all go golfing on the weekend. We don't have a large laboratory to test baits. Why, you ask? We don't need a big laboratory because our pros fish, our employees fish, our salespeople fish, our suppliers fish, our mold builders fish, our owners fish, and our kids fish. This is our laboratory. Our R&D comes from time on the water, learning how to make fish bite. All that time on the water brings us thousands of hours of testing new products and improving current ones for all species.
All of us on the Pro Tournament Trail use Gamakatsu hooks.
Why?
Because they are absolutely the best.
It's not about how many bites you get.
It's how many you put in the boat.
Gamakatsu makes hooks for every fishing style.
We didn't come this far to lose fish.
Did you?
For more information, visit gamakatsu.com.
Pro-inspired, pro-designed. Tested and proven by legends on the water. Dominating the tournament trail for over 50 years. Everything you need, one legendary brand. Strike King.
Guys, what makes our Spro lures beat the competition?
I mean, you have to admit, we nailed it with my McSticks and rock crawlers.
Man, we've all won money on my plugs.
My Wamic shot put fish in my boat. One thing's for sure, we all count on our Spro lures to beat the competition.
Designing cutting-edge baits with some of America's top anglers. Spro lures beat the competition. To see the entire lineup, visit a retailer near you or spro.com.
The Ned rig. What rod should I be using with the Ned rig? My favorite is the Denali Lithium multi-spin rod. It's our 7'4" length, great Ned rig rod. It's got a great sensitive tip on it. It's long enough where I can make long casts, which you're usually fishing clear water with a Ned rig, and it's got enough backbone to get those fish in. So check it out, Denali Lithium Series 7'4" multi-spin.
All right, we're back wrapping up Tuesday with my good friend Ken Duke. And I want to let everybody know tomorrow, Wednesday, double dip. We're going to have Bobby Lane on, who is leading the Angler of the Year race over on the BPT. And then we're also going to have Mike McClellan on to straighten out some of the rumors of his latest injury that took place indoors, not on the water, but indoors, doing an activity that is near and dear to my heart. So we'll get the goods tomorrow on the latest injury for Mike McClellan, and he's having a decent year too. So those two guys tomorrow.
I'm looking forward to talking to both those guys. I really enjoy both those guys, but I may have to give Mike a hard time. I may have to question his athleticism, which is something I don't do lightly.
Well, I think, certain situations when you go past the boundary of what you should be doing, that's the best way I can describe it right now. You don't go past that boundary. Bad things happen. And I think that's what happened. But we'll get the scoop tomorrow from Mike.
To quote Clint Eastwood, a man's got to know his limitations.
So I don't know how soon he'll be kegling a little bit in the future. We'll see. So we'll get the scoop on his injury. And then Bobby Lane, quietly having a really, really good season. I know he was chasing Wheeler at that last one at Travis. And Bobby's just a good dude, man. One of my favorite guys to have on the show.
Absolutely. I love Bobby Lane. He's practically a neighbor of mine. He lives about 30 or 40 minutes away in Lakeland, Florida.
Yeah.
And he's just a wonderful guy. Every December, it didn't happen last December because of COVID, but every December for over a decade now, he has hosted a youth tournament. And that youth tournament has grown and grown until it's now over 200 boats. And every boat has a captain who is an adult, plus 2 youth anglers who are in competition. And he has tens of thousands of dollars of prizes to give away and scholarships to give away. It's a big, big deal here in Central Florida.
Yeah, good stuff. And then Frank on Thursday, I have no idea what Frank has in store. We were going to try and get Wes Logan on Thursday just for a few minutes, but I'm trying to get him booked for the Monday show. Matt will be back in studio, and then we're going to start going through the list. Ken, I made the announcement of names for people that are going to be guest hosts. We're going to hopefully kick that off when Matt gets back. And the other thing I wanted to mention, people are starting to get their BTL merchandise.
Mine is coming in on Friday, Mark. I got the tracking info, so I'm going to get my hoodie, my cap, my sticker, all that stuff is coming in on Friday. I'm excited.
Yeah.
And I love the thing with the guest hosts. I'm really looking forward to listening to some of the special guest hosts who win the contest. A lot of people don't know this, but guest hosting on BTL is how both Letterman and Leno got their starts.
I thought Letterman was a weather person.
Well, yeah, but then he got to guest host with you one time, and that really propelled him into the late night arena on television. So I know Letterman has thanked you profusely on the air through the years.
All right, Brent Musburger. Remember that name?
Oh, yeah.
All right. You know how he got his start?
I know how he kind of met an untimely end at an Alabama football game. No, I don't know how Musburger got his start.
He was a weather person in Southern California on the CBS affiliate. Then he went from weather guy to news anchor for that CBS affiliate station in LA. He wasn't even a sports guy. He went from weather to anchorman.
And that's crazy because, as you and I know, because we're the right age, Musburger was one of the biggest sports guys for 40 years.
I know. He was a terrible weather guy, too. I remember as a kid.
Right.
Horrible. But how difficult is it to do the weather in Southern California?
Yes, it's going to be warm and sunny.
The greatest weather job in the country is San Diego. It's the same thing every day. Sunny,
Well,
high of 78, low of, 58, partly cloudy maybe. There's just nothing to it.
chance of big bass.
Yeah. All right. I'm going to say this, man. I'm looking at the comments over on the YouTube feed. I do want to apologize. I screwed up the instant feedback over on the Bass Zone page. That is not running today because I failed to put in the proper code. So I apologize to all those people over there. Will not happen again. That is just my bad. I had a lot going on. The reason we didn't have a show yesterday is because the high school that I teach at, we had our graduation practice run through in the morning, and then graduation was later that night. We live streamed the graduation ceremony for the first time in the school history. So that was kind of a big deal for the school and the community, and a lot of people got to see their nieces and nephews and grandchildren and everything else graduate because they were unable to attend due to whatever reason. So yesterday was a crazy day, and then I got back late, and I forgot to put the code in there, so that will not happen. All right. I do not want to get deep into this subject. This is what I'm going to say. There's a lot of comments over on the comments on the YouTube page. Folks, you guys that have been around BTL and watched since the XM days, you know what I'm about. You know how I look at things. This whole division between fans liking Major League Fishing and fans liking bass, all right, what I'm going to say is you have a choice. You can watch one, you can watch the other, you can watch both. All right. And it's great that we live in a country where you're able to express your freedom. But what I will say this, and I can be opinionated about how the grass is growing in my yard. All right. I can be opinionated about anything. But what we have to understand is they have made a choice. And when I say they, I'm talking about the anglers. And the choices that have been made by these anglers, that is their business. They are evaluating what is best for their angling, what is best for their family, what is best for their future, in their opinion. The decisions that they made on whatever that they want to fish has no bearing on my life. It doesn't. All right? The decision that Jacob Wheeler made by fishing Major League Fishing has no bearing on what I do in my life, with the exception of how I cover the game on this show. And we have been very non-biased and tried to cover all aspects of what is taking place from a professional perspective. All right? And you throw in the business perspective that I like to bring in every now and then. Folks, just relax. All right? Some of the things that happened early in both organizations, all right, in your opinion, may have been wrong. But what effect personally has that brought upon the amount of time that you spend on the water, the amount of money that you make, the way that you support yourself and your family? This is what we utilize to learn the game and enjoy the game. If you want to learn and enjoy the game over on the bass side, great. If you want to learn and enjoy the game over on the MLF side, great. If you want to watch both, great. But stop the hate. I'm tired of it. And I haven't said that very often on this show. I'm just tired of it. All right, hate is a very, very strong word. Dislike, yeah, I get it. Everybody has an opinion. And if you feel, in your opinion, that this is happening, that is your opinion, and you are free to say that. But when you continue to spew hate toward either organizations, and Ken is one that can tell you, back in the history of bass, there were situations that were occurring that we're seeing over the past 3 or 4 years. In fact, I've got the book right there that Bob Cobb wrote that talked about what so many people went through in the early stages of bass. It's the same thing, Ken. It's the same thing. And this whole hate just needs to stop. It's about fishing. It's about learning the game. It's about spending time in the boat with somebody that you care about, be it a friend, be it a daughter, a son, whoever it is. If you don't like either one, well then, okay, great. But stop the hate. Jeez. Am I wrong, Ken?
No, you're not wrong. I agree with you. There are things about both leagues that I really, really like. There are things about both leagues that I'm not a big fan of. But you're right. History repeats itself. When Ray Scott formed Bass in 1967, 68, it wasn't long after that he had competition. He had people trying to come in, including Jerry McInnes, including a guy named George Oates, including a lot of different people. Unless you're a little older like me and Mark, you probably don't remember 95, 96, 97 when Irwin Jacobs had bought Operation Bass and he was getting the FLW tour rolling. And there was a lot of ugliness back and forth about it then. But back then, people didn't have the bullhorn and the platform of the internet to talk and express themselves about it. But I'll tell you this: having worked inside BASS for many years, and I still write for both BASS and MLF. I've got articles coming out in their magazines in the next issue. In both cases, I can tell you that I feel like I have a little bit of an insider perspective because of some of that, but unless a person has that inside perspective, it's really hard to know what's going on. It's really impossible to know what these people are thinking and what their rationale is for some of this stuff. And I think that's where we get into trouble, is when we try to impute certain thoughts and moods and attitudes to actions. I used to tell people all the time, never attribute to evil that which can be adequately explained by stupidity, because I felt like it just gave you a better approach and it made your mind rest a little easier. But anyway, these organizations are different. I think it's on some level it's great that they're different because it gives us something to choose between. And life is about choices, and if you feel like you have to make a choice, you can. And if you feel like you can enjoy both, like I do, like I think Mark does, that's great too.
Hey, I said this on the show, I think a week or 2 weeks ago. We went and watched a AA hockey game in Wichita, Kansas. All right. I'm a huge fan of the NHL. All right. It was AA hockey, but you know what? I was enormously entertained by how hard those guys were working. And it had the total package. It had, power play goals. It had a couple of fights. It went to overtime. It was enormously entertaining. So whatever entertains you, and as a hockey fan, I learn stuff, all right, about the game every time that I watch the game. But the unique thing about this sport and what we love about it is that we can watch, be it a 5-fish limit or, catch everything you can over 2 pounds or 1.5 pounds or whatever it is. You can learn from what these guys are doing. And then you can go out and try and duplicate or try and increase your knowledge base and experience based upon what you're learning from what these guys are doing on the water. And dude, that's never going to get old. It doesn't matter if you're catching 5 fish or you're trying to catch 50. The amount of knowledge and experience that you can learn in whatever format that you're gaining in, that's what we want to do. Because the bottom line is this, Ken, we want to catch more fish.
Amen.
We want to catch more fish.
And I'm going to throw that out as my criticism of both of the major tournament leagues, is that there's not enough education in their web approach. There's not enough education in their primary programming on television. I wish there was more, and I think there's room for more. Luckily, we've got folks pitching in and finding other ways to get it done, whether it's on Bass Talk Live, whether it's on Bass University, whether it's on some of the individual angler channels on YouTube, like Jacob Wheeler, Edwin Evers, Roland Martin. That's what I love, because I'm really interested in how do I catch my next fish. I'd like to be a lot better angler. And every once in a while I get in the boat with somebody like Edwin Evers or Jacob Wheeler and realize how how sadly inadequate I am. But I do learn from those guys every chance I see them, every chance I watch them on the internet.
Mm-hmm. Well, you know, I could have been the guy to go in and put people in timeout and delete comments and all that. I'm not doing that because, yes, part of what this show is about is people voicing their opinions. All right? I've said my piece. I don't do that very often. I mean, yeah, I may get opinionated with Matt and disagree with some of the stuff that he says, but
Matt says crazy stuff. Matt says crazy stuff.
It's just, you know, nobody is going to like 100% of everything. I mean, heck, there's stuff I don't like about what I'm doing coaching basketball right now. There's stuff I don't like about what goes on, you know, with stuff that I'm trying to get ready for retirement, if and when that ever happens. There's stuff that I didn't like when I spent 25 years with UPS. That's just part of it. But you know what? The biggest thing, Ken, is everybody has a choice. You have a choice.
Everybody does have a choice. The other thing I always think about when people are being critical about things or commenting or offering an opinion, however they may phrase it, is you're entitled to your opinion. And I never want to take that away from anybody, but you're not entitled to your own facts. And I really appreciate when somebody can come to the table with facts rather than just opinion. I'm much more inclined to listen to facts than I am to listen to somebody's opinion.
Yeah. God, man. And you know what? I'm just tired of hearing about the same things over and over and over and over and over and over. All right? And I think everybody out there that's been a fan of this show for a long time knows exactly what I'm talking about. There are details that nobody knows about except the people that were involved with it. Sure, you can speculate, and sure, you can think, all right, certain things and how you interpret what might have happened, but you just don't know. And once again, you got a choice.
Well, you know, I really appreciate the fact that you don't shut people down and put them in timeout for offering an opinion. The fact that you have people battling back and forth between the BASS, MLFLW formats and maybe soon the NPFL stuff shows that you are offering a fair platform and a level playing field. We live in a time where if you're uncomfortable with a certain position, you just change the channel to somebody who creates the echo chamber that you want, whether that means Fox versus CNN or whatever it might be. And it's even true in the world of bass fishing, where there are some platforms out there where you know they're going to be expressing an opinion that you are 180 degrees against or that you're an absolute lockstep with. But on BTL, I love the fact that it's a level playing field. I love the fact that you offer everybody an opportunity. I love the fact that you're an equal opportunity platform, and you give everybody an opportunity to agree or be offended as they see fit.
Well said. All right. Well said. And once again, some of the comments out there, folks, you just don't know. You don't know. All right. And it is what it is, and everybody has an opinion, and everybody can voice their opinion on whatever platform that they would like. But I'm serious. Sometimes you just don't know. There are many situations that I refuse to talk about. Why? Because I just don't know. I just don't know. Now, if I take the initiative to dig in deep and try and find out the facts, then I may go down that path. But you know, it is what it is. And sometimes it's so frustrating because I'm all about trying to do the right thing. And one of the toughest things about this job and doing what I have done for so long is to get calloused on what truly is wrong. And to toughen up and realize that you cannot take it personally. You just can't. Because if you did, you would be an absolute mess. And I know some people have said bad things about me. They've said bad things about BTL. They've said bad things about people that are involved with this show, you got to callous up, and that's just part of the territory that it goes with. But at the same time, Ken, I'm still, and the people that are involved with this show are human. It's like the question that I asked Wheeler. Do you ever reflect back on what you did when you win? Well, you know what I do every time that I get done with this show and I drive to Blanchard High School? I reflect on the show. What did I do right? What did I do wrong? What do I need to improve on? Because that's how much pride I take in what I do. All right?
Well,
but I have learned to be callous towards certain things.
Another thing that's very gutsy about your show, and then this is not the Mark Jeffries ode to Mark Jeffries program, but another thing that's very gutsy about your show is it's live. Mm-hmm. And it's not taped and carefully cut together. So sometimes people misspeak. Sometimes the connection is not as good as you would like it to be. It may never be perfect, but it's as good as anything out there. It's better than what's out there. It's an opportunity for a lot of people to be heard. It's an opportunity for a lot of positions to be voiced. And I think that I would like to see a situation where we're all big enough, smart enough, brave enough to understand that we all have a perspective, but we might be right. Because here's what I've learned in my many, many years on the planet is being wrong quite often feels exactly like being right.
Yeah.
And that sucks. That sucks when the realization hits me that, I was wrong. And I think the person who's taught me the most about that, perhaps not ironically, is my wife.
So I'm sorry, folks, for going on that little tangent. It has been, it's been a while, but sometimes you just get to the point of frustration and you try to speak the truth and tell people out there, the number of fans that we have, how you're feeling. And it frustrates me to a certain point because there are things that are going on in the world right now, Ken, that I don't like. All right? And in bass fishing, in basketball, in whatever. But when you really look and really drill down to that lasting point is, what are you going to do that affects you and your family, all right, and the whole big picture of what you're trying to accomplish? So, there's things I don't like about what's going on in Major League Baseball right now. I was a huge baseball fan. But, it's like what they're doing in extra innings now, putting a runner at second base. You got to be kidding me. What would Babe Ruth say about that?
Yeah, that's. I'm not a fan of that. I used to be a huge baseball fan. I kind of fell out of it about 20 years ago, but I had season tickets to the Braves for all their postseason runs, and I love the game, and my appreciation of baseball stats kind of led me want to bring stats to bass fishing. But don't ever apologize for a Mark Jeffries rant, Mark. My God.
Well,
some of us live for that.
Hey, I take a lot of pride in us being very non-biased, and we don't have any agendas. We don't have any side gig going on or anything like that. This is who we are, and this is how I am.
But the very best thing about what you bring to the game, and I love people who are passionate about anything, but my God, man, you are so passionate about the game, and that's one of the things I think that's led me to admire you for so long and for us to be friends for so long, is you are so passionate. And I admire that a great deal.
Yeah. A lot of people love the rants. It's in here, Ken. It's in here. It's not out there. It's right here in the heart, dude.
My rants are not my rants are not as good and as impassioned as yours are. And I've kind of a counterpuncher personality. I should tell the audience here that whenever I run into Mark on the road, whether it's at something like the Bassmaster Classic or ICAST or whatever it might be, some industry function, we'll see each other, and and Mark will come storming over, and he's usually all worked up about something or an idea that he has or something he thinks is going in the wrong direction. And he's all fired up just from go. He's all fired up. And I'm just sitting there trying to figure out what's going on and what you're talking about and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But I love that passion.
But is this not a true statement though, Ken? If there is something going on that I feel is either right or wrong, I just don't talk about it. I actually investigate it and drill down is the term that I use. You got to drill down and really get the facts before you either say anything about it or talk about it or discuss it. Not just on the show, but I mean just in casual conversation. I don't like rumors. Always. I don't like hearsay. I don't like anything that I don't know, at least that I have done the effort to find out what the factual information is. That's just how I roll.
Mark Jeffries always does his due diligence, always goes directly to the source, always finds out all the information available before he offers a public opinion. And that's another thing to admire, because so many people who have a platform that they hope one day to rise to the level of Bass Talk Live don't even begin to do such things. And that's why they will never rise to the level of Bass Talk Live.
All right. Now, having said that, and I saw the post on the comments, I do want to mention I have a phone call today with my contact because it was brought up. I've been trying to get somebody from Bass Pro Shops to discuss the pro team situation with all the White River Marine. I have tried and tried and tried to get somebody to come on the show and explain what the situation is rather than speculating. All right. Today I have a phone call with my contact. We're either going to get a date nailed down or they're not going to do it. It's one of those two things, because I kind of said, hey, look, we need to either say, look, we need to get a firm date, or you're just telling me that you're declining to come on. I mean, I just want to know to where I can tell the fans. So I am very hopeful that today I will have that answer for the fans, either a confirmed date or we decline, we're not going to come on. So we'll see.
Yeah, that's a shame if they don't respond and agree to be on the show. Perhaps not surprising. I mean, we're talking about privately held companies. They don't owe the public anything, but it's nice to get out there, clear the air, offer a little bit of transparency, especially when it makes sense to the company's bottom line.
Yeah. All right, so that's going to wrap up things today. Wow, folks, thank you so much for being part of the show. The fans make this show happen, and I've said that all along. And for those people that ordered BTL clothing, hey, it's going to be here hopefully this week. I actually got mine in on Saturday. No, yesterday, not Saturday.
Mine's coming this Friday. I'm excited about it.
Yeah.
I'm going to be wearing it next time I get a chance to go fishing.
Now, the cool thing is we're going to be doing another order soon, very soon.
Oh, that's nice. Very nice.
So if you missed out, you're going to get another opportunity to get some BTL merch and help out Matt with his expenses for the Open. So
can't wait. Do it about once every 20 years. I'm going to need to stock up with my next order.
I don't know. I think we're going to do it maybe next month around the Classic. Or something. I don't know.
Very nice.
That's Matt's gig. I do know this. We will have my favorite color is 7 t-shirt.
Oh, that's cool. That's cool. I like that.
Yeah. So we'll have that up hopefully in the month of June or July, and folks, you'll get a second chance to get your merch. All right. I want to thank Jacob Wheeler for taking time out of his turkey hunting to join the show. And Ken, can't thank you enough for pinch hitting for Matt while he is fishing the Opens. And we will continue tomorrow. Bobby Lane, Mike the Kegler McClellan. Can't wait for that. And then Frank on Thursday.
I've got to learn more about the McClellan situation. This is a big story.
It's a big story, big scoop, man. He might be on the DL. I don't think so. Mike's not going on the DL. All right, that's it, folks. Thanks again. Back tomorrow with Ken. That's it. We're out of here.